Welcome to Robraintics, where we discuss recent research advancements in the field of neuroscience and robotics. Welcome back to Robraintics. This month, we're tackling some really cool papers from February.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Two of the papers you sent me this month focus on neural circuits, basically how networks of neurons talk to each other and work together to drive our behavior.
Right.
But they approach this question from, totally different angles. One study looked at decision-making in monkeys, and the other one investigates how the brain plans and executes movements.
Cool.
So first up, can you break it down for us? What's the core idea?
Sure. So basically, the researchers wanted to figure out how the brain sifts through a ton of information and focuses on what's relevant to make a decision.
Right.
And they used this new method called the latent circuit model to study this process in monkeys.
Okay.
And what they found is that the brain has this specific mechanism for suppressing irrelevant information.
Wow.
And what's even more interesting is that they found the same suppression mechanism in artificial neural networks that were trained on the same task.
Right.
Yeah, so this isn't just a quirk of the monkey brain. It might be like a core feature of any intelligence system, whether it's biological or artificial.
Whoa, that's pretty mind-blowing. So, okay, what about this other study on movement?
All right, so this one focused on the posterior parietal cortex, or PQC. It's a brain region involved in planning and controlling movement. And the researchers wanted to see how the PPC adapts to different kinds of challenges.
Okay.
So they had monkeys navigate two scenarios.
Uh-huh.
One where their visual world was mirror rivers.
Oh, that sounds hard.
And another where they had to move in the opposite direction of a target, like overriding their natural instincts.
Oh, interesting.
It's a really clever way to study how the brain adapts to changes in sensory input. And what they found is that the PPC can actually rewire itself to deal with this kind of distorted feedback. It forms entirely new neural maps to make sense of the reversed world.
That's incredible. But what about the other challenge?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
For the rule-based task, the PPC didn't create new maps. It just tweaked its existing ones, like re-aiming its activity to fit the new rule.
So it's like the brain has different strategies for dealing with different challenges. If the basic rules of the world change, it can rewire itself. But if it's just a matter of applying a new rule to, an existing situation, it can adapt more flexibly.
Exactly. And that shows just how adaptable and efficient the brain is. It can learn new skills or apply new rules depending on the situation.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And speaking of complexity, it makes you wonder how much of what we learn from studying, monkeys actually translates to the human brain.
Right. Luckily, we have a couple more papers this month that kind of delve into this question of cross-species translation.
Okay.
One focuses on gene expression, and the other one explores the impact of chronic alcohol use,
Interesting.
both in macaques and humans.
Okay, so first up, genes.
Yeah,
I'm guessing this one gets pretty deep into the, molecular nuts and bolts of the brain.
it does. Essentially, they looked at how active different genes were in various parts of the macaque brain. But it's not just about whether a gene is active or not. It's also about how much the corresponding protein is actually being produced. They compared gene activity to protein levels in macaques, and they also compared macaque gene activity to human gene activity.
Oh, cool.
And what they found is that the match was pretty good in brain areas responsible for basic sensory and motor functions, like vision and movement.
Which makes sense. I mean, those basic functions are probably pretty similar across species, right?
Right.
But I'm guessing it gets more complicated when you look at the parts of the brain involved in, higher level thinking.
You got it. The match was much weaker in areas like the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in things like planning, decision-making, complex thought. This suggests that those areas have evolved differently in humans, leading to differences in gene expression. It's a good reminder that while monkeys are really great models for studying many aspects of the brain, there are limits to how much we can generalize to humans.
For sure, yeah.
This study also found that looking at gene activity in specific layers of the brain gave a much more accurate picture of protein levels.
Oh, wow. So it really matters where in the brain you're looking.
Exactly. It highlights the importance of understanding the brain's structure. The cortex, the outermost layer of the brain, is organized into these distinct layers, each with its own unique cell types and functions. So it's not enough to just know which genes are active. You also need to know where they're active in this kind of, intricate architecture of the brain.
Okay, so let's switch gears now and talk about the impact of alcohol. This paper looked at both dopamine, it's a key neurotransmitter involved in reward and motivation, and gene activity in macaques.
Right. And they found something really surprising.
Oh, yeah.
While chronic alcohol use drastically changed how dopamine worked in the monkeys' brains even after they stopped drinking, there were no significant changes in overall gene expression, at least in the area they studied.
Wait, so dopamine's going haywire, but the genes that control it aren't changing. So how do they explain this disconnect between gene activity and dopamine signaling?
Well, they found that the relationship between genes and dopamine was altered by the monkey's drinking history. It's like alcohol flipped a switch, changing how those genes influence dopamine signaling. The genes themselves didn't change, but their impact on the brain was fundamentally different.
Wow, it's kind of crazy to think that our experiences can have such a lasting impact on our brains. Even at like the molecular level, it really highlights the whole nature versus nurture thing, doesn't it? So even though our genes provide like the basic blueprint for our brains, our experiences, both good and bad, can profoundly shape how those genes are expressed and how they influence brain function.
Exactly. It's a crucial insight. It means that our brains are constantly evolving, not just in terms of learning and memory, but also at this deeper molecular level. Our experiences become embedded in the very fabric of our brains.
That's incredible. And that wraps up our February deep dive into the latest neuroscience research.
Well,
I don't know about you, but my brain is definitely feeling a bit full right now. We've covered everything from monkey brains rewiring themselves to the elusive nature of the human self. It's been quite a journey.
it has. I hope our listeners enjoyed the ride.
Me too. And if you did, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share Robraintics with your fellow brain enthusiasts. We'd love to hear your thoughts on these studies, so leave a comment below and tell us what sparked your curiosity or what questions are still swirling around in your mind. Until next time, keep those synapses firing.